If you work for a non-profit, I want to interest you because I believe this video is for you. Whether you sit on the program side, on the finance side, or somewhere in between, it would be beneficial for you to listen. So let me start with the reality that I've seen across small organizations, growing organizations, and even international organizations. Program teams most of the time feel like finance is slowing them down. And on the other hand, finance teams feel like programs is not giving them what they really need to facilitate their work. In the mix, the leadership also feels is left wondering, why are financial reports taking so long? Why are they lacking so much clarity? And why don't they tell the story? So after nearly 2 decades of working in nonprofit finance and operations, I can tell you from where I sit clearly that this tension is not, from my experience, most of the time, it's not a personality issue. I also feel like it's not a competence issue because many of the times I've worked with one of the most, teams that are competent and very good at what they do. And it's definitely not a commitment issue because most of the time I find that teams are motivated and they're committed to the work that we do. My diagnosis tells me that most often than not, it's a reporting design issue. And so in non-profits, programs and finance sometimes live in different zones because you find program teams live in impact. They think about communities served, they think about activities delivered, and they think about outcomes achieved. And also they're thinking about stories donor and beneficiaries care about. On the other spectrum, finance teams live in responsibility. They think about budgets and band rates. They're thinking about grant rules across the many grants that they could be handling. They're thinking about compliance, statutory compliance, donor compliance, and everything compliance related. They're also thinking about audit trails, what needs to sit where, what needs to be done in a way that it will give them a clean audit. Of course, they're also thinking about donor expectation. So if you look at it, both teams are doing important work. Both are protecting the mission, just in different ways, but where usually the gap forms is that most non-profits, most organizations never intentionally design a system that connects impact to financial reporting. So instead of program teams report that make sense to them, and finance teams try to relate. So many times you find that programs, they will report what they make sense to them according to the spectrum from where they are staying. Like I said earlier, they live in impact, they live they understand the community served and activities delivered. So their reports make sense to them in that manner. And so when this comes to finance also try to translate this later after they receive it from the programs, and now reporting becomes very stressful. So there are experience delays. We get people become defensive, and quietly, there is loss of collaboration and support for each other. So I've lived in both sides. I've been the finance leader, staying late to fix reports. I've sat in meetings where program teams felt misunderstood and even sometimes blamed. At one point, we were constantly behind on donor reports, not because we lacked the skill, but because we were forcing alignment instead of designing it. And that's when it actually hits me that we are not failing uh, because we do not know it, but the reporting fails when finance and programs meet only at reporting deadlines. But from my understanding after going through this is that the real clarity happens much earlier inside systems, routines, and shared understanding. But before I go further, let me pause here for just a moment because I feel this is important. If you're part of a non-profit organization and you're struggling with delayed financial reports, tension between programs and finance teams when it comes to reporting, and donor reporting that feels rushed and unclear. I will be hosting free webinar sessions on financial reporting clarity starting January 2026. So these sessions are designed for nonprofit leaders and finance teams who want reporting to stop being painful and start being useful. You'll find the registration link in the comment section of this video, and I would strongly encourage you to sign up because it will for sure give you a clear framework for where the problem is and how to fix it step by step. Okay, so let's continue to our discussion about the misalignment and the gaps. So my understanding is that the reporting gap usually is created long before reports are due. It shows up when programs plans aren't linked to budgets. There is a big disconnect between the work plan and the budget. And then finance teams aren't designed around, finance systems aren't designed around how programs actually operate. Everybody is running their own show, and people expect that at the end of it, they meet up together and create a report that resonates to what everyone was doing. While during implementation, everybody seems to be running their own show. This might sound like fiction, but it actually does happen. The other place where I think reporting breakdown occurs is that reporting expectations live only in finance, not across the organization. Most of the time, and especially in organizations that have larger portfolios of mixed funding, you find that programs are implementing, but they are rarely aware of the expectation that of the money that they are spending. And so everything is again sitting in a silo. So when the reporting comes, the finance are expected to interpret what was implemented by the program team, notwithstanding the requirement of that particular grant. And in many nonprofits, reporting is also treated as a finance responsibility instead of an organizational system. So finance becomes the kind of the cleanup team, and programs feel like they are constantly being corrected because there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to reporting time. And definitely that's not collaboration. That's actually survival mode. So from my many years of experience, this is what I can say nonprofits can work to bridge this gap. Organizations can actually do this well. There are three things that are usually true in organizations that have achieved this. One is that there is a shared reporting clarity. So everyone understands what information matters, when it's needed, how it will be used, and it's not just finance programs too. And in many circumstances, especially organizations that have gotten this right, and for those that are running very restricted grants or even unrestricted grants but have reporting responsibilities, you'll always find that at the beginning of the grant implementation, the grant team will always hold an inception meeting and break down these things so that as people start to implement, they are subconsciously aware and they are present in the requirements or in the reporting requirements that are coming. Sometimes even templates are shared earlier and people are able to interact with them and design even their internal reports that will easily feed into these templates. The second thing that organizations that have gotten this right have done is that finance is a partner and not a gatekeeper. So finance don't just say no, or they don't just come and say this is wrong. They actually help program teams understand how decisions translate into numbers, because that is what builds trust and builds collaboration between the teams. And also the third thing that I know usually makes this bridge the gap is that reporting is also inbuilt into operations. How does this happen? So the best profits are not created at the month end or at the deadline. They are the natural output of the system of how work is planned, tracked, and reviewed throughout the implementation period. So, and when reporting is built in, then definitely panic disappears because you can see it coming up, growing as you implement and as you go towards your reporting deadlines. So once we are able to get into this place where gaps are closed, what do we usually see? So when program teams and finance teams finally operate from the same understanding, of course, reports come out faster, donor questions become easy to answer, audits feel cleaner and easier, and then leadership also gets the real insight. They just don't get numbers, but they actually get to see more than the numbers because there is an alignment. And again, also, teams also stop working against each other. But the biggest change that I have seen is when there is this level of understanding between the two teams, people actually feel respected. And we know people and human resource is one of the greatest assets that an organization can have and invest in. So programs teams will finally feel heard and finance teams feel supported. And the organization gains financial credibility, internal and external. So if you're watching this and thinking this feels like my organization, I would like you to know this. You don't need better people, you don't need more pressure, and you definitely don't need more templates. You just need clarity, structure, and a system that bridges impact and finance. And that's exactly what we'll walk through in the free financial reporting clarity webinars starting January 2026. So if this conversation resonated with you, register using the link in the comment below, and let's work to fix the system at the root, not just at the burnout level. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.